Alright everyone, supposedly Donald Trump is a Russian stooge. That is, he's controlled by Vladimir Putin, he's completely at the behest of the Russian state, and he does their will of the Kremlin. Can I ask the liberals that believe this a question then? Why is he warning BRICS that he's going to imply a 100% and therefore catastrophic tariff on their goods should they fuck around with the US dollar? Appears more protectionist than anything else now, doesn't it? There's a reason for this. Link in the description, archived of course. Donald Trump is an America firster. That is, he actually believes what he's saying. I genuinely believe that he does. At this point, he's been fucked around by the US government enough to realize that the US government is no longer representing the will of the people, generally speaking. Hence his FBI director pick the other day, among other things. You would not expect that a Russian pawn would threaten to tariff Russian goods at 100% if there was any manipulation of currency. And by the way, one BRICS member does this fairly regularly, and that's China. They manipulate their currency, they manipulate trade, etc., etc. If you were to tariff at 100% Chinese imports, all of a sudden the domestic market would flourish, because what would happen is you would have more domestic productivity. All of a sudden, US factories that have been derelict for years would be restarted in haste, because they would no longer be competing with a much cheaper foreign thing, whatever resource they happen to be producing or refining. They would no longer have to actually compete with them, because their product would all of a sudden be cheaper. And this is, I think, what Trump has in mind. I don't necessarily agree with extending it to Canada and Mexico, although they've largely backed down literally now. But as far as the BRICS countries go, when you have a conglomerate of countries that have a huge output, admittedly, but they're almost entirely reliant on exports, this is the sort of thing that you can pull off. You can say, okay, we're buying a bunch of your goods. There goes 5% of your economy if you fuck around. You will find out. I agree with Trump on this particular move, actually. And I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I'm a fan of free trade. But in order to have free trade, the other country has to also engage in free trade. We should be spreading capitalism around the world. You know, you sold us a bunch of haddock, and we sold you a bunch of cod or something like that. It should be free trade, but it should also be fair trade. Unfortunately, liberals have forgotten about this. You know, like years ago, they introduced coffee blends and shit like that, and it's like, fair trade coffee. How wonderful. They appear to have forgotten their roots, actually, because now they no longer agree with fair trade. They believe that a tariff war is a terrible thing, even if other countries are tariffing our goods, and we're not doing anything to respond to them. It's a big fucking problem. Within the economy, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars worth of trade that's being fucked away. That's basically where we are right now, and that's due to the dereliction of, you know, the prior administration. I mean, the current administration, not the prior one, thankfully. For a few years, we were actually doing fairly well. Although I would point out, and this is one thing, if I had another bitch about Donald Trump, he didn't go far enough in his first term. I'm hoping, and I'm expecting, by the way, that in his second term he goes much further. When you, again, look at the FBI director and some of the other picks, Lee Zeldin for the head of the EPA, Tulsi Gabbard on Intel, it looks like he's going to go all in. That's probably a good idea at this point, because China has been fucking us on trade for decades. Not just years, but decades. Multiple administrations have effectively ignored the threat of China and the fact that they're willing to manipulate trade. Tariff our goods, but then expect no tariffs on theirs. Whine about it when they are suggested or imposed in any way, and that's exactly what happened during Trump's first term. My hope is that during a second term, Trump goes further. Really put the screws to them, really drive them down and say, look, trade with us fairly, or we won't trade with you at all. We want your trade. There's no problem with that. Chinese goods, that's perfectly fine. But stop manipulating your currency. Stop manipulating your markets. And this is mainly based on currency more than anything else. Trump's threat effectively stems from him saying, okay, the Eastern Bloc countries are trying to create like a super currency or something, undermine the US dollar and trade in that. I do believe that the US dollar should remain the dominant currency of the world. If you call me imperialist for that, that's perfectly fine. Yes, I have pride in my country. Just wish that it functioned a little bit better, like lower taxes, not robbing people of their guns, leaving people alone and allowing them to express themselves and stuff like that. That's literally all I'm asking. It's not that very much after all. That's about all. Peace out.